you do that.
That is the way you do that.
And done are things in ways.
And things are done in ways, too.
Yeah, but see, that's a perfectly normal way of saying it, which is why I didn't.
Makes sense.
I'm having supper, by the way. Or maybe breakfast. I'm not sure if I've eaten yet today.
I don't know either. Your schedule.
So, tonight, this morning...
I don't know how to sew. Do you know how to sew?
In an afternoon. I can, but, no.
Well, you reap what you sow.
I can't do that kind of sewing either. That one's for sure no.
I mean, dude, you took the stuff out of the bag and threw it. I mean, how hard is that? I could do that.
Well, I wasn't sure, which type of... Because, there's lots of different ways to
yeah,
sewing.
that's true.
Yeah. So,
right.
This time, we're going to be talking about...
David's prayer.
David and the book after Jude, which was written and occurred multiple thousands. Is it in the thousands?
No, not even
multiple hundreds of years after he was dead. And this prayer is 14 words long, if whoever counted these counted them correctly. I know it wasn't me.
I don't even know which translation they counted in. So, I mean,
but
some are longer than others.
If you're listening to this and you're counting back through and you're like, they got their math wrong, don't worry. It wasn't me. I didn't do it, okay? It's in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 19.
It's 14 on my paper.
Huh?
But I
haven't counted it, so I don't know. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go up against the Philistines?"
He really likes to inquire of the Lord and ask things about whether he should do things or not. Why do you look puzzled by that?
I'm going to bring that up later.
Okay.
"Will you give them into my hand?" And the Lord said to David, "Go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand."
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
Should I go kill them? Go kill them.
Yep.
I'll help you.
And David came to Baal Perazim, and David defeated them there. And he said, "The Lord has broken through my enemies before me like a breaking flood." Therefore, the name of that place is called Baal Perazim, which apparently it was something different before he went up there, even though it doesn't appear to tell us what that is.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
maybe it was
sad.
the Valley of Rephaim before that. That's where they were.
They're spread out in the Valley of Rephaim.
Right.
So I think it's
and then he calls it...
They're in the valley, and then the specific city that he was fighting in was Baal Perazim. But anyway.
Which is interesting because Baal... We think of Baal as all these false gods.
Yep.
Baal is actually simply a generic term for a god.
Mm-hmm.
So when he names it Baal Perazim, he's naming it God breaks out. But he's not talking about one of the Baals as we think of like Baal worship of the false gods. He's actually referring to his God, the God of the Israelites.
Which is kind of interesting. I wonder why he did Baal instead of El.
It's probably that they had picked up some of the terminology of the Canaanites by this time.
Yeah.
Generations of living here, they started to talk like the Canaanites. I mean, you have to ask those same questions when you think about us today. Like, we believe in God and the God of the Bible and, Elohim or Yahweh or whatever people, different names that are given to him.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to things as simple as, like, the days of the week, we didn't name the days, we don't call the days of the week after names that have anything to do with God. We call the days of the week after the sun, the moon, Odin, Thor, Freya.
Turkish gods.
Turkish?
Thor was originally Turkish.
Yeah. Nobody thinks of him as Turkish. He's a Norse god.
I know, that's why I like calling him a Turkish god.
You just want to say he's a turkey, don't you?
So, we were trying to figure out how many turkeys live in Turkey, and it kept on just giving us population reports, and I'm like, is the entire country, like, all of the people there are actually birds?
No, well, what we found out was they don't call them turkeys.
Uh-huh.
They call them Hindis, which is the word for Indians. So they call them Indians.
Uh huh. And
The Indians call them
Asian Indians, mind you.
yes, the Indians from India.
Uh-huh.
India, yeah, I mean, that kind of Indian.
So the Asian Indians call them.
They call them turkeys. Well, I mean, it's not actually.
No, it was like 3 layers deep. I forget what it was.
Yeah, it's wild.
They called them like.
But nobody calls them Americans, even though this is where they come from. It's a native bird to North America. So anyway, how did we get to turkeys?
We're talking about 4.
Yeah, but anyway, so the same thing with the months of the year.
We hadn't finished reading.
We
this
named the
yet.
months of the year after the Roman gods, Janus and Mars, March,
And the Caesars as well.
and the Caesars,
August,
Julius,
July.
you know
Took me a second to remember what
who
that
Julius
was.
was, yeah.
Mhm.
Which is why September is not the 7th month, and October is not the 8th month, and November is not the 9th month, and December is not the 10th month, even though they should be.
And technically they are, because that's what they mean. So.
But they're not, because, Julius and Augustus decided, we need to stick our months in here, and we don't want to be tacked on the end, so we're going to just push the others. Instead of calling it Dodecember, which would be the 12th month.
Which
Or is that 20?
sounds
Oh, that's
interesting.
12, yeah.
Dodecember.
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 Anyway.
Okay, so finishing reading this thing.
After Baal Perazim. Yeah. Verse 21.
And the Philistines left their idols there, and David and his men carted them off. And the Philistines came up yet again and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So see,
Gluttons
it's
for punishment.
but see, it's a different place because
yeah, it's still the valley of
changed
Rephaim.
the name again, even after he changed
Right,
the name.
it's still
So
the valley of Rephaim.
we're good. And when David inquired of the Lord, so this is another prayer
Again, yeah,
thing.
this is like
Yep.
2 in a row.
2 for the price of 1.
Yeah.
And when David inquired of the Lord, he said, "You shall not go up. Flank them, go around to their rear." So it's like, they're here, and then you're here,
yeah.
and then you go around like that. And then
I think we know what go around means.
No.
Okay.
You can't trust the non-military people to understand military word tactic things.
But I think even non-military people understand go around. No. Okay.
Can't be trusted. Nope.
Yeah.
No trust allowed.
You're not a
Unless-
military person.
I do fighting, thank you. And come against them opposite the balsam trees. And when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then rouse yourself. For then the Lord has gone out before you to strike down the army of the Philistines. And David did as the Lord commanded him, and struck down the Philistines from Geba to Gezer.
Yeah. Did he kill any of the old geezers?
I don't know, probably
Hard to tell.
knowing him. Okay,
He
so
did like to kill people a lot.
the thing that I was going to bring up was that at the beginning and at the end there, they're in the valley of Rephaim,
Mm-hmm.
and David says, "Shall I go up to attack them?"
Yeah.
Now, if any of you don't know
Yeah.
what's going on here, in biblical times, going up,
Usually it was like, yeah.
it wasn't geographical
It
as
wasn't
in
like north and south.
It was more of like higher
Higher.
elevation. So if you were in the valley and you went to visit your friends on the mountain, even if they were south of you,
Yeah.
you would say, "I went up to see these people."
Yeah.
And so it was odd to me that the Philistines are in a valley, and then David says, "Shall I go up to fight them?"
Yeah, except I think in this case, it's not a directional type thing. It is just a term that was used about war. So, like you go up to war. You don't go down to war. You go up to war. We would say you go out to war.
You
But-
go up to war to take them down.
But yeah, I think that's probably what's going on here. And also, this could also be a translational thing where we've got go up when it really wasn't a word that meant up. Just meant go to war.
Also possible.
Yeah. Because I don't, Hebrew's hard.
It's a language. It exists.
It is.
So people tell me.
It does exist.
Ah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I've seen it. I can't tell you what. I mean, I can't read it. I mean, I can at least look at Greek and pronounce the words. Hebrew, I'm like, there's markings on the page. Right.
So yeah, the prayers here really pretty simple.
Yeah, both times he's asking God, should I go fight? And God one time says, yeah, go get him. The other time he says, let's be sneaky. Go around the backside
and it's
wait.
interesting.
And I'm going to go up. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to strike him down before you.
And it's interesting that first of all, David asks to check both times.
Yeah, he doesn't just assume.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said last time I should, so I do it again.
Even though we know that the Philistines are Israel and God's enemies, David isn't like, well, they're our enemies, so we should just go kill them. He asks God every single step of the way, is like, do I actually go fight them right now? And God's like, oh, yeah. And it's also
do I go fight them the same way that second time? Because that's the thing, Moses made the mistake. He hit the rock the one time because that's what God told him to do. Well, the next time God tells him speak to the rock, and he's like, well, I hit it before, I'm going to hit it again. So David didn't make that mistake at this time, anyway. Not to say he didn't make mistakes, because he did.
Yep.
Right. So what else? You said you were starting to say something else. Nothing.
Just pointing out that second point that God kind of changed stuff up the second time.
Yeah.
And so even if you do get that first step right, and as you were living life, you're asking God every step of the way, should I do it like this or should I do it like this? When you get in a situation that looks really similar as one you've already been in, and you remember like how it worked out last time, and how God pulled things around for you or whatever happened, don't just assume that God's going to do the exact same thing.
Don't assume that God wants you to do the same thing at age 40 that he wanted you to do at age 20.
Mm-hmm.
It can get you into trouble. All right. So, and of course, both times they strike the Philistines, they win the battle, and God helps them, and God defeats them, their enemies with them, which is what he had promised he would do. If they would follow him and trust him, he would defeat their enemies. And so they do.
And now,
this is part of God's plan for them to take the land of Canaan.
We have two problems. The first one is that despite being a pretty good video, this one's about to hit 13 minutes. The second problem is that I'm out of food now.
Well, see, if you turn the video off, you can go get more food.
Yeah, so we're going to end this
both problems
for
at once.
no reason other than that I need to go get more food.
Pretty sure that's not the reason.
That's
because we're done.
It's perfectly the reason. See y'all. Bye.
Bye.